Okay, we're going to load some fabric onto the Studio 2 frame. It's set up in what we call Clearview mode. That basically means that the backing fabric goes onto what's effectively the second rail away from you, and the quilt top will go onto the rail that's nearest to you, and the wadding will go between. We've marked the centre point of the cloth leaders. There's a black mark that you can see just here, and that's where we're going to centre our fabric. So before you put your quilt back in and your quilt top onto the frame, you'll want to fold it in half and mark, probably with a pin or a short mark or a blue wash away, the centre point. This is straight off the bolt, so that's actually quite easy because it's a fold. So this is my backing fabric. We load it so that the right side was pointing towards the floor, so wrong side face up, and we're going to have the bottom of the backing fabric. So you need your pins. The pins that we give you, these are the long arm pins. They're very, very sharp and they're very strong, and they're great for pinning the fabric onto the frame. So just get some of those out, and what we want to do is get it as square as possible. So taking that centre point and aligning it with the centre point mark on my cloth leader, which is just here, I'm going to put the first pin in. And I do my first pin, I'm right-handed, so I'm going to do the first pin, I'm going to point it away to my left-hand side, and I'm going to continue pinning, aligning this cloth leader with the very bottom of my quilt backing. We always suggest that your quilt backing is at least 2 inches all the way around, i.e. add 4 inches to your quilt measurement, so that you've got enough excess on both the backing and the wadding to enable you to be able to complete your quilt and not run out of backing or wadding because of either stretching or fullness or anything else. So we just continue in this way until we've got all of our pins in. We suggest the final pin, and by the way, just head to toe. It doesn't matter if there's a little bit of a gap in between, but head to tail all the way along. You might find it more useful, I have one back at the showroom, to have a wrist pin cushion, or you can get, we also have the little red trays that we use. We have them on our website, which are really good for holding the pins too. They're magnetic. That last one then is a double bite, just like that. Now let's do the other direction. When we're smoothing the fabric, it's important that we point these pins in the direction of where we're smoothing it, because if you had them all pointing the same way and you smooth the fabric, you might catch a pin in the side of your hand. And having had that happen, I can tell you, it hurts. They're really strong. They're actually milliner's pins, like this. And sometimes what people use, you know those little clips, Clover do them. Sometimes what people do is just put sort of little clips part way along, just to hold the fabric up. You can see otherwise the weight of the fabric, particularly if it was much wider, would keep dropping, and it can be a bit time consuming just kind of continually adjusting that. If you just put clips every sort of 12 inches or so, it makes the process a little faster. Some people also consider other options other than pins if they're doing a lot of work commercially, perhaps quilting for other people. There are some other different loading types, and we talk about those on our foundation workshop. So that final one, just here, just going to do that double bite. Now on the end right-hand side of your quilt frame, you'll find a cog and a stopper. Suggest that you put that stopper down so that when we now rotate this to load the backing fabric, we can only go one way. Remove the top fabric temporarily. So now I'm going to just take off the wadding. And now I'm going to smooth this. This is a new, obviously it's a brand new quilt leader. You'll find these get a little bit easier over time. So all I'm doing is just rotating that and just turning it, loading this quilt backing onto the quilt frame, And as I do so, I'm just making sure that it doesn't roll out either to the left or to the right. Just keep smoothing it as you go, like so, until you've loaded the quilt backing. You can leave a little bit of excess because we're now going to attach the other side to what's called the take-up rail. This take-up rail is going to be where your finished quilt is going to roll onto. You'll have marked the centre point again of the take-up rail cloth leader. So there's my little black mark, and I'm going to put that mark right up against the centre point of the top of my quilt backing. And I'm going to put another pin in that. And we're going to proceed in exactly the same fashion as we did for the bottom of the backing fabric, and just keep pinning. I quite like, personally, if I'm doing a quilt, I quite like to load the fabric, choose my thread, choose my bobbin thread, and sort out all of the stuff to do with my quilt the night before or the day before. And then when I start the quilting, it's a creative process. I find this more of a sort of logical, methodical process, and when you're in a creative frame of mind, you don't always want to be doing this kind of task.
Just a couple of points from me as well. This leader on the back bar here has to go behind this dead bar. It's very easy if you're loading your quilt backing for the first time that goes over the top. If that happens and you load your backing fabric, you'll end up having to take it all off again and put the leader back behind here. So it's got to go under that bar, which is called the dead bar. Second point about the cloth leaders is they will get a little bit grubby over time, but you mustn't wash them because they will shrink enormously and you'll have to buy new ones, which is good for us, not so good for you.
No. And it's a really good point that Pete mentioned that, because actually installation I did last week, I obviously forgot to really reiterate that point, and the lady who did the loading said she'd done exactly as Pete said, and she'd loaded over the top of that dead bar. And there is a way around it, actually. You can take out the dead bar and put it over the other side if you've got enough space, but you might have to unload it if you haven't. Now, notice that I've come to the back of the frame. I could have continued and pinned in this direction, but obviously being a right-handed person, that's a more awkward way to pin because I'm pinning from left to right. I find it easier, and also being shorter, I find it easier to come to the back of the frame. It doesn't matter that my pins are on the top on this side and on the top on this side. I can actually pin by just holding those two edges together and pinning from left to right from the back, and that way I avoid getting backache, because I definitely do get backache if I lean too far over. So again, I'm just pinning it like this. And bear in mind, this backing fabric is going within our margin of error, as I said before. So as long as you've got a bit of margin, it doesn't have to be absolutely as accurate as the quilt top loading does. So now I've done my double bite at the end, and that is my quilt backing loaded.